Welcome to Stockscores Active Trading, how to generate income by trading the market with the Stockscores Approach. My name is Tyler Ballhorn. I'm the founder of Stockscores.com, and in this video I will provide an introduction and background on my history as a trader. We'll talk a little bit about what is active trading, the concept, how it works, and how I carry out that concept. It's important to understand how to measure performance, so we're going to talk a little bit about the metrics for measuring success and failure in the market. That'll lead us into the real economics of trading the stock market. I'm also going to show you the process that I use for finding trades. I've got this set of rules that I apply every day in the market that allows me to focus in on the hot stocks of the day. And that process is something that's relatively simple, but is something that I have spent many years perfecting. We'll talk about the components of a trading approach, and then I'll show you how you can become a Stockscores trader. All right, let's get into it then. I've been trading the market for 25 years. I started with a mere $3,000 in capital, some of which was borrowed from my credit card. Now, on my best day in the market, I've made over $50,000. My best month, over $250,000. And it all comes down to a simple set of rules and strategies that I will discuss with you today. Now, about 15 years ago, I developed tools for trading my unique approach. You see, I looked around in the marketplace and really couldn't find the tools that I needed that gave me an edge in the market. So I built them. And that is the basis of Stockscores.com. And also some proprietary indicators that I have created for TradeStation, some specialized trading software, which I will show you later on in this video. Now, I developed an education program for others to learn the Stockscores approach, whether you want to be a long-term investor, a medium-term investor, or a very active trader. We have education options for you, and they're all shown here in the Stockscores Education Center. Now, the focus of this video is to give you an overview of my active trading approach. And what I have found is that most stocks, most of the time, are not worth trading. I track somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 stocks on Stockscores.com, but most of them each day are trading in their normal way, which means they're not offering the high probability, high profitability trading opportunities that I look for. The key to finding those stocks that have the ability to move really quickly and really be the hot stocks of the day or the week or the month is to focus in on abnormal activity. Now, I'm going to show you through this presentation what I mean by that. But in addition to finding the right stock and buying it at the right time, or in some cases short selling it at the right time, there's some other things that we need to do to be successful traders. We must know how to manage risk, how to preserve our capital, when to exit the trade, and the ultimate battle is to overcome our emotions. Trading is simple, but it's not easy, and the thing that makes it hard is our emotional attachment to money, and we have to be able to overcome that, and that's a big part of what we teach with the Stockscores approach to active trading. Now, as I said, most fast-moving stocks start their trends with abnormal activity. So that's really always going to be the focus for me, whether I'm looking to make a day trade to hold for a few hours, a swing trade to hold for a few days, or a position trade to hold for weeks, months, or even years. All of those are focused around abnormal activity. Now, what I mean by abnormal activity is something I'll explain in a moment. But the conundrum that we have is that while most fast-moving stocks start their trends with abnormal activity, not all abnormal activity leads to these big price moves. And therefore, we have to have a way to combine abnormal activity with other analytical methods to trade the stocks with the very best potential. Now, before we get into how I find these trades, what I look for, that sort of thing, I want to talk a little bit about measuring performance, because for you to really have a sense of how these trades are really great performers, you have to understand how we measure performance. As traders, we often focus in, I would say incorrectly, on how much money we made on a trade or what the percentage gain was on the trade. We're pretty proud of ourselves and we can say, hey, I made 20% in 3 days on that trade, or I made $1,000 on this trade. The problem is if we're risking more than we're making, then what we make on one individual trade is not all that important, because if we consistently take on too much risk for the gains that we earn, in the long run, we will be out of the trading business. It's not really a good trade to make $1,000 if our potential loss on that trade was $2,000. We're not going to be right all of the time. I have never seen a trading strategy that is right 100% of the time. So losing is part of being a successful trader. And it's the trader who can't control the size of their losses or let their profits run to their maximum potential that ultimately ends up failing in the trading business. So when we are trading, we really want to judge our performance using this concept of reward for risk. If we risk $100 to make $500, we've earned a reward for risk of 5. If we risk $1,000 to make $10,000, we have earned a reward for risk of 10. And so the economics of trading really come down to how the reward for risk plays out over a large number of trades. Now again, the tendency is for traders to judge themselves as good or bad traders based on what they did on their last trade, but that's really not an appropriate thing to do, because trading is a numbers game. We're not going to be right all of the time, and we're going to have some losses along the way. What's of key importance is how we do over a large number of trades. If we consistently make more money on our winners than we lose on our losers, then we don't even have to be right more than we are wrong. And let me show you an example that demonstrates that. Suppose that I make trades where I lose 60% of the time. Now, that's what I would do in my worst month, let's say, but let's say it's a bad month and I have 60% losers and only 40% winners, but my average loser is $500 and my average winner is $1,500. Well, how much am I making or losing after I have done, say, 10 trades? Well, if we go through the math of it, if I lose money 6 times and my average loss is $500, then I've incurred $3,000 in losses. But remember, I've made 10 trades, and 4 out of 10 times I made $1,500 for a net profit of $6,000 on my winners, which, when balanced against the $3,000 that I've had in losers, means a total net gain of $3,000. Even though I am wrong more than I am right in this example, I have still made a profit. The key to being a successful trader is to take small losses and have those bigger gains to outweigh the losers and provide the profit from your trading. I find that when I trade 10 times, I might have a couple big winners where my reward for risk is somewhere between, say, 5 and 15. And I'll have some losers, 4 to 5 perhaps, and some smaller winners. And I find that the small winners outweigh or balance off the small losers, but my real profit comes from the patience I have to ride the big winners. That is where the overall profit comes from after 10 trades, after 20 trades. Now, I'll go through hot streaks where I've got 80% of my trades right, maybe 90%. And then I'll go through really slow periods where I'm only right 30 or 40% of the time. But because my average winners are bigger than my average losers, I can make money in both scenarios. And the key is about having that patience to stick with your winners when you're right. And that really comes down to having a solid set of rules for knowing when to sell your winners, when to sell your losers, and maximize overall profitability. Now I want to show you some of the tools that I use, and in doing so demonstrate the kind of trades that I look for. Now for active trading, I'll use my website, stockscores.com, and I will also use some specialized trading software called TradeStation. I'm going to start with a look at Stockscores.com and how I use it to find trading opportunities, more of the active variety. So I'm in Stockscores now, and you can see that I have gone into the Market Scan tool. Now that is found under the Tools menu. I just went down to Market Scan, selected that. The Market Scan is a member-only tool. You have to be a member of Stockscores to use this, and of course we have free memberships. That doesn't give you access to the Market Scan. You have to be a subscribing member of Stockscores to utilize this tool. Now we've got all these filters on the page. I can scan for the Stockscores indicators, the exchange, whether they pay dividends, how much prices changed today, whether it's breaking through support or resistance, what the volatility is, whether it gapped up or down, whether it's making an abnormal price move up or down. There's all kinds of filters. There's also volume filters, momentum study calculations. If you want more information on how the Market Scan tool works, I encourage you to watch the video in the Getting Started area of the Stockscores Education Center for a specific video on the Market Scan. I'm not going to get into all the details of it today in this video. What I want to show you is just how I use one of the preset scans for finding, let's say, stocks that I want to day trade today. Because I've got a very unique set of criteria that I look for on the stocks that I want to day trade on a given day. And I've created a market scan for that. You can see that one of the preset scans on Stockscores is called Day Trader. If I click on that, it will activate a number of different filters on the market scan page, which I can then run a market scan for to find those stocks that meet the basic criteria of what I'm looking for. These are stocks that are trading with abnormal volume, abnormal price action, doing certain things that I found are critical for success when I'm day trading stocks. I don't want to day trade the same stocks day in and day out. They don't have the same potential. But the stocks that are trading with really a specific set of criteria, which I teach in the Active Trader course on Stockscores.com, those are the ones I want to focus in on. So you can see here there's AGO Pharmaceuticals, Nike. On this particular day, Nike announced earnings, and it was behaving with some real abnormal behavior. That is what I wanted to look for. Now what I then do is I take this list of stocks and I export it into Excel so that I can drop it into my real-time trading platform to watch for the entry signals. On a typical trading day, I'll run this market scan maybe half an hour after the market opens. It gives me the list of stocks that meet these important criteria for abnormal activity. I then watch those stocks on my broker real-time charting system looking for my very simple entry signals. And in a typical day, this list might generate 3 or 4 trading opportunities. On some days it'll be 8, some days it'll be 1 or 2. It really depends on the market that day. So that's how I use Stockscores. It's a tool for finding the stocks to focus on. There's 10,000 stocks out there, but on this particular day, only 32 of them were worth looking at. And of that 32, I would shorten the list down to perhaps 10 to monitor for those real-time trading opportunities. Now, I also use a tool called TradeStation for the real serious active trader, the person who wants to perhaps make a career out of trading the market. I have created some special indicators for TradeStation that allows me to have the computer do a lot of work for me. I've programmed TradeStation to look for the specific things that I like to see, and I go beyond normal analytical methods. I don't use normal technical analysis indicators. I've created my own, and those are included with the Active Trader course. When you are one of my students, I give you my TradeStation code that allows you to apply the simple swing strategy or the superhero day trading strategy. So jumping into TradeStation now, we can see here I've got a daily chart, an intraday chart, and a number of little tools over here called radar screens. Now, my typical process is I run a scan called gainers. Gainers simply looking for stocks that are making good gains. I'll cut and paste all those symbols into this radar screen where it calculates something called action candles. This is my own invention. It's a specific little bit of math that looks for stocks that meet my basic criteria. And when one of those stocks is doing what I want it to do, it will trigger an alert. And you can see here that there was 6 stocks that were making an action candle on the 13-minute interval. So this is applying one of my swing trading strategies, something called a simple swing. Now, when a stock makes an action candle, it'll put a little pink dot on the chart. And you can see there where my cursor is right now, there's a little pink dot on there. And anytime there's a pink dot, I know that I then have to check that chart to see if it has the chart pattern that I like to see. And of course, in the foundation course that is found in the Stockscores education, I teach you about chart patterns and about how to read chart patterns. And then in the strategies that make up the active trader course, I teach you exactly what to look for when you are inspecting these action candles. So as an example, we can take a stock like CNET, let's say. Now CNET made a little pink dot 4 or 5 days ago, and it also met the criteria of the chart pattern that I want to see. So in that case, I buy the stock at $1.55, I put my stop at $1.06, and I watch that stock over the next day and a little bit move up to almost $4. And in that case, that trade made me 1 times risk, 2 times risk, 3 times, 4 times, just hit 5, and I exited that trade at just under 4 times risk. What that means is that if I risked $1,000 on this trade, I made a profit of about $4,000. But keep in mind that I did that in just the course of a day and a little bit, one overnight holding session. Now, how much capital would it take for that? Well, without going into all the intricacies of this strategy, I would have had to buy just 2,000 shares of this stock to make that $4,000 profit. That's a $3,000, maybe $3,100 trade to make nearly $4,000 in profit. Why? Because this was a fast-moving abnormal stock. Stockscores tells me that it's a fast-moving abnormal stock early in the day. And alternatively, I can use TradeStation to find them that much sooner using the special proprietary indicators like the action candle. Now, I also will day trade the market. I might look at a stock on an intraday chart, something like Radio Shack. I'm going to make this a 2-minute chart now. And again, I'm looking for those little dots. We have, when we're day trading, we'll use something called a message candle. It's a sign that the market has suddenly taken an interest in the stock. And because I have a lot of power in TradeStation coupled with the indicators that I've programmed specially for TradeStation, I can find these things before most people. That's my edge. I can find the hot stocks before most people. Now, the key to doing all that is having a well thought out trading approach. You need a strategy, the rules for when to buy, when to sell, managing risk, and managing emotions. You need some chart reading skills. The foundation bundle of videos and lessons in the Stockscores Education Center will teach you how to read charts, will teach you how to manage risk, will teach you how to know when to exit a trade, that sort of thing. Those are the basic skills. Once you have the basic skills, then you can start to apply those basic skills in the strategies that make up the active trader course. Or if you only want to be an investor, then you would choose the investor course. There are distinctive processes that we use for finding things. I showed you a little bit of that already, where I went into the market scan on Stockscores and then jumped to my real-time charting program. Or on TradeStation, I ran a scan and then I dropped a list of stocks into what's called radar screen, looking for action candles, and then I checked the chart. It's a step-by-step process that can be played out very quickly to find stocks that are moving quickly before most people find them. Now, we need some tools. I use Stockscores and TradeStation. You may use other tools. You may want to adapt my approach to other tools, but I have had the best success using my website, Stockscores, and those proprietary indicators for TradeStation. Ultimately, to be a good trader, you have to have emotional control and discipline. And although you might think that that's simply a matter of your personality, it's actually something you can learn. There are reasons why we get emotional about stocks. There are reasons why we break our trading rules. And a good trading plan will take those breakdowns into an account and figure out ways to solve them. Ultimately, of course, when you're trading the market, you need capital. And in the Stockscores approach, what is of utmost importance is capital preservation. We have a step-by-step process to leverage yourself up in how much capital you use so that you shouldn't ever risk a substantial amount of your capital base. If you're wrong, you get out. That's the simple approach that we use. So how to become a Stockscores trader? Well, you have two options. The first option is spend years learning how to do it. That's what I did. I started trading when I was 19 years old. I borrowed money from my credit card and I spent 8 years trying to figure it out before I really became profitable. Along the way, I suffered all kinds of losses. I suffered all kinds of frustration. I spent thousands of hours learning how to read charts and manage risk and manage my emotions. I personally went out and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing tools and processes and strategies, many of which now make up the Stockscores website or those special indicators that I have on TradeStation. I don't want you to take that long, expensive approach. It is much easier to simply complete the Stockscores Active Trader Training Program. I've created it for you to save you the time, the money, and the frustration. Now, what do you get when you take the Active Trader Training Program on Stockscores.com? You get my strategies. These are the culmination of years and years of trial and error. You get my TradeStation code. So for those that want to make trading a serious business and they want to use TradeStation, I will give my students those TradeStation indicators that I have created, the little dots on the chart and some code that puts indicators into radar screen. You're going to get videos, you're going to get books, assignments, you're going to get my help in creating a trading plan that is right for you. And throughout the entire process, I give you my support via email to make sure that you are doing it properly. So that is how the Active Trader Training Program works. Now, I encourage you to look into it in a lot more detail, figure out if it is right for you. The address that you see on screen is where you can get a little more in-depth information about the Active Trader Training Program. Go to stockscores.com/learn. And if you have questions for me at any time, if you're trying to decide whether the Active Trader Program is for you, email me at tylerb@stockscores.com. You can see the address there on screen. I won't try to pressure you into buying this stuff. It's entirely up to you. I'm just there to answer your questions. I teach a very small number of students every year. It's not my primary focus. I trade the market every day. But for a small number of people who want to learn my approach, I'm there to help you with some very personalized service. Well, that about concludes the module here on the Stockscores Active Trading Approach. I hope that you've found it beneficial and learned a little something about the active trading realm. If you want to learn more, please go to stockscores.com/learn and make sure that you watch many of the other videos and lessons here in the Stockscores Education Center to get more insight about how all of this stuff works. Hope you've enjoyed it. Have a great rest of the day.